Welcome to the International Conference on Consciousness-Based Leadership and Management, organized by Maharishi International University. This is session number 5, day 1, research papers on the theme of workplace issues in oneness and flourishing. Session chair is Dr. Krishna from Bangalore, and we have about 6 papers that are going to be presented, and we will start with first their presentations, and I will hand over to my colleague Vikram Gulati to run their presentations. Then we'll have discussion. Thank you. Vikram, please.
Thank you, Anil. So we'll run the presentations. Our first presentation is by Indu Peiris of Open Polytechnic of New Zealand, along with Ulluwishewa from the Jayawardanepura University in Sri Lanka. Let me queue up this presentation for you. Give me a minute.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining our presentation. My name is Indu Peiris. Before I begin, I would like to take a moment to offer our thoughts to everyone who are affected by the pandemic and for all those who care for them. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that we all know of, but yet fail to master or to properly maintain. It's about being happy. Our focus, we have 3 things to talk about today. The first one is what prompted this investigation. The second one, what are the theoretical lenses we use to discuss this, and our solution. So what prompted this investigation? Let's look at our main question. How can we achieve a balance between work, life, and family in order to sustain our subjective well-being? Let's look at what subjective well-being is. Subjective well-being is a multidimensional construct that emphasizes an individual's own assessment of his or her own life, not the judgment of others, and includes cognitive judgments of life satisfaction and affective evaluations of emotions and moods. So in essence, it has 3 key components: emotions, life evaluation, and domain satisfaction. Under domain satisfaction, you talk about marriage, health, leisure, etc. Subjective well-being is a synonym of being happy, whereas concepts such as satisfaction and happiness are considered feeling happy. Feeling happy is part of being happy. When we talk about our overall well-being, our work life plays an important part of it. It enables us to satisfy our basic needs, our safety needs, and our social needs. We also spend a considerable time of our life in that. Therefore, it has a major impact on overall well-being. And it is also found that material conditions and consumption have been identified as a key determinants behind happiness, apart from our other domains as well. Let's now look at what work-life balance means, because it plays a major part. We need to balance it. So what is work-life? Work-life balance can be broadly defined as maintaining an overall sense of harmony in life with minimal role conflict. When we talk about work-life balance, temporal dimension has been identified as a bigger stress-generating factor that leads to work-life imbalance. Time, we actually do not understand it correctly. People directly experience only the here and now. It is impossible to experience the past or the future, yet our direct experiences populate our minds with thoughts, emotions, feelings related to all three temporal frames and guide our choice and action. So we thought of using construal level theory as a good theoretical foundation for us to talk about how these temporal frames come into effect. Now, what is construal level theory? Construal level theory proposes that we do transcend here and now by forming abstract mental construals or understandings of distal objects, that is the external world. We do not have the time to explore the CLT theory in detail in this presentation, but the core message is that distal objects and events that we perceive as the world, as I, me, and mine, populate the mind in order to continue life as we know it. The underlying message is that we all are constructed perceptions, everything external or internal to us. So, in that context, we need to acknowledge that what we know is not what really is. Once we understand that, in short, we do not know what is in the present moment. We fail to notice that the present moment is in a constant flux. We fail to notice that we adapt to proximal or distal objects. But what is this adaptation is all about? Let's look at it now. Our feelings and thoughts, whether they are positive or negative or neutral, they are transient. They're always changing. They are impermanent. Now, furthermore, they are primarily mind-made. I say primarily because we cannot avoid the bodily pain or pleasure, but we can limit the psychological affiliation to these bodily feelings. Now, we need to integrate the insights of Eastern philosophy such as Buddhism or the Hinduism or look at the life of the yogis in order to understand this impermanent nature of our direct experiences. Our experiences in the present moment manifest as feelings, thoughts, or perceptions, but how we perceive our experiences lay the foundations for our subsequent thoughts and future actions. Our current experiences can be condensed to three kinds of feelings, that is pleasant, painful, or neutral. But what is imperative is to understand that the real nature of present moment before they get converted to pleasant, painful, or neutral feelings. The true nature of the present moment is empty of such feelings, thoughts, or perceptions, but we do not know that. Now, that requires development of mindfulness, or in other words, see things as they really are. And if we understand that, then it's easier to understand what is what is a real well-being is. How do we sustain our subjective well-being and the work-life balance? Now, when one sees the present moment as a mirage, an empty or transient, impermanent, then it can lead to three things: overall sense of contentment in life, ability to fulfill aspirations, and minimal role conflict, increase the ability to fulfill responsibilities. Since we are running out of time, let's look at the conceptual model. In this model, we show the life events happen here and now. They can be positive, negative, or neutral. Instead of reacting to these feelings, which is hedonic state, we understand these events as conditioned situations, and they are bound to change. Now, the natural outcome is either we adapt to these stimuli or the stimuli itself changes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this understanding can lead to three outcomes. We become content with life, our roles become clearer and less complex. Because now we know where the real happiness lies. Real happiness is where there's no attachment to thoughts, feelings, or perceptions, self, others, or simply what we called as the word I, me, mine. If you understand that, you can really maintain a baseline level of happiness no matter where you are or what the situation is. Now, with that, that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer them now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Indu. Our next presentation is from Amelia Indrajaya from Jakarta, Indonesia. And the topic of her paper is the importance of spiritual leadership and spirit at work as intangible resource capabilities in the service industry, a resource-based framework. Let me cue this up.
Hello, good day. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to present the importance of spiritual leadership and spirit at work as intangible resource capabilities in service industry, a resource-based view framework. And I'm only given 7 minutes, so I will have to go really quick on this. And then I would like to share the big picture of how I came up with this research. You will see in the next slide. This is based on this construct of spiritual leadership. We have this beautiful dimensions of vision, hope, faith, altruistic love, meaning and calling, and membership. And so the big picture is how the spiritual leadership as the intangible organizational resources where it is creating a great leader as a whole climate. Yeah. So this is not talking a position as a leader in the corporation, but it can be anyone with this intangible organizational resource. But this is supported by the system in the company. And this is through the dimensions that we know from Fry 2011. The dimensions are vision, hope, faith, altruistic love, meaning and calling, and membership. And this is creating, influencing the intangible corporate capabilities in the form of spirit at work. This is the work of Kinjarsky, 2014, and the whole thing is impacting performance through proxies. We're using the proxies organizational commitment and job satisfaction. So somehow the big picture is the transformational of the whole corporation where the spiritual leadership is the resource, and then the spirit at work is the competencies, the capabilities, and then creating the performance through organizational commitment and job satisfaction. And so, how is it designed? It is an explanatory, conclusive causal research on spirit at work, and to show how variables derive from spiritual leadership into spirit at work, which creates comparative advantage in the form of organizational commitment and job satisfaction. The populations are, this is telco. This is like the biggest company of telco industry in Indonesia. And then we are using the primary data, and then questions were distributed to the employees. And data analysis is using Lisrel SAM. Okay, so quantitative explanatory research and using Likert scale from 1 to 5. Okay, somehow if we right now draw this construct, it will look like this. So this is the construct of spiritual leadership, impacting the spirit at work, and then also making a big influence toward organizational commitment and job satisfaction. Okay, major hypothesis. The H1 is spiritual leadership through its dimensions influence the spirit at work positively and significantly. So we go with to the minor hypothesis. There are 5 dimensions of spiritual leadership. So this vision, hope, faith, altruistic love, meaning and calling, and membership. So they go the minor hypothesis. Okay, and the hypothesis number 2 is the higher the spirit at work, the higher the organizational commitment value. And then hypothesis number 3 is the higher the spirit at work, the higher the job satisfaction. Okay, so the very interesting thing coming when we run it through the Lisrel SAM, and then it is showing a significant and positive relationship from the dimensions of spiritual leadership toward spirit at work. Only one dimension uh, is not significantly impacting spirit at work, even though it's still positive. It is from altruistic love. But then we found a supporting theory saying that in the one that is impacting is the one that is related to work. And altruistic love is the only dimension here which is not directly related to work. So in this example of Telkom, they are doing this spiritual leadership in a very specific way by having their own spiritual capital division. So they are doing it in a very serious way. Yeah. And then all the work related is confirmed. It is impacting positively and significantly towards spirit at work. Yeah. And we see from Ray et al. 2004 that in order for the intangible organizational and individual resource capabilities to be appropriated, all aspects should be considered and organized efficiently and effectively. The spiritual capabilities still need to be developed to provide a better impact. So I think what they are doing right now by having the spiritual capital division is the way they are trying to develop this atmosphere of spirit at work. What are the managerial implications? The policy of human resource development needs to support the value of vision, hope and faith, meaning and calling, and membership, so that in the work situation, their value is aligned with the company's value, and this would significantly influence the spirit at work. This is the feeling that they are having, that blissful feelings that when they work they kind of like lose uh, sense of time because they are so into it and resulting into commitment and satisfaction. So the highest impact is when the value is embedded in the organization rather than depending upon certain types of leaders or type of job activities. That means it has to be part of the DNA of the company. So it's not because of one leader or certain leaders. And so it is becoming the culture of the company. And of course, there are so many limitations of this study. And so in the future, it would be lovely if we can do a research on the impact of culture and tradition, because all of this construct, we are taking it from the Western construct, and it will be interesting to see the influence of culture and tradition. And then it will be also interesting to see comparative research between state-owned company and private-owned companies. Thank you very much. And I really would like to get more feedbacks from all of you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Amelia. Um, our next presentation is by N. Jayasankaran of Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, along with Suresh Mony of NMIMS Bangalore, and their topic is consciousness-based approaches to leadership and management education.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let me at the outset thank the organizers of this international conference for giving us an opportunity to make a presentation and for accepting this paper.
Good morning, everyone. The screen will show you the agenda for the day. This is being presented by Dr. Jayasankaran, my colleague, and myself. We have a lot of leadership theories and leadership models, but yet, and a lot of research has been done on leadership, yet it remains an esoteric subject. And why does this happen? Because most of the leadership theories and models are confined. They are narrow. They attack a specific issue or a specific problem. We have the authentic leadership model theory, we have the boundary spanning theory model, we have the situation theory, but each of them overcomes specific limitations. The most important point that I think leaders should have is self-realization. They should be realized souls. They should be able to manage their own body, manage their mind, and manage their thoughts. And that is where the existing leadership models face. And therefore, the objective of the organizers to bring in the consciousness-based approach to leadership is very welcome.
If you look at the Western philosophy and its history, in the beginning, both philosophy and psychology, they were going in an integrated manner. But over a period of time, they were going on two different tracks. So the concept of Atman is very unique for the Indian philosophers. And the Western psychologists and philosophers, they didn't have an equivalent word for Atman. They replaced it by consciousness. So the psychologists looked at it from their own angle, started understanding the functioning of the mind, and medical specialists started looking at it at the functioning of the brain. Both were flawed because consciousness, or Atman that we call it in the Indian psychology, it has nothing to do with direct understanding of the brain or the mind. So the real Atman is very easy to understand. We let ask two questions: who am I and what I have? Most of the time we are looking at what I have. I have a body, I have a mind, I have an intellect. But Atman goes beyond this. Therefore, this concept of Atman is something abstract which we need to understand through an experiential learning, not through a scientific intellect or through the mind. If we look at the way we are undergoing through those three levels of consciousness, where there are Jagras, Sopana, Sushupti. We are at the waking stage, we are also at the dreamy stage, we are at deep sleep stage. During the waking stage, our body consciousness is full. It is known as gross body or Thula Sarira. In the Swapna or in the dreamy state, the thought process is there, but not from outside, from inside. I may be able to imagine myself as the head of a state or even as a beggar. But in these two states, my thought process is present. In the Sushupti stage, thought process is extinct. That is actually the most happy and beautiful and enjoyable state, when the thought process is extinct. When once we realize that this consciousness goes through these three states, that realization is known as Turiya. And the next question is, how do I understand this concept of pure consciousness and internalize it? We must understand this body and mind, they are interrelated through the breath. If I want to purify my mind, because this luminous Atman is reflected in the mirror of the mind, but the mind is polluted and the mind is full of impurities. So as a first step, I need to cleanse the mind. How do we do it? It is through pranayama. Again, Westerners talk about brainstorming to get a new idea. But in the Eastern side, we don't agree with that, because when you storm a muddy water, it will become more muddy. When you keep the brain still, I think the mud will get settled down at the bottom and clear water will be there. You will be able to take a better decision. And if you look at the breath or pranayama, we need to carefully observe how we breathe. Most of the time, we don't realize we don't inhale and exhale with both the nostrils with the same intensity. Many times we inhale with the left nostril, exhale with the right nostril, which is known as Ida. The cycle gets reversed. I inhale with the right nostril, exhale with the left nostril, which is known as Pingala. When Ida is operational, I charge my right side of the brain. When Pingala is operational, I'm charging the left side of the brain. Therefore, when once you understand the effectiveness of pranayama, you will be able to realize this pure consciousness.
So what Dr. J has outlined gives us a lot of useful thoughts for developing a concept, pure consciousness-based leadership model. Based on what the Advaita philosophy says, the world is one big family, and that comes out from the essence of the pure consciousness. So if that be so, then leaders would not be just looking at their own company or for their own customers and their profits, but they will look at a larger societal purpose. So the first step it will help leaders to do is look at the larger societal needs. There will be no differences in caste and creed and color. So the decisions taken by leaders will be uniform. They will not play favorites. They will not play favorites because of someone's looks or someone's caste or creed. There will be an absence of materialistic outlook. Since the days of Milton Friedman, the shareholder has become very important. So it will not be only the shareholder, it will be the requirement for the larger community or the larger society. There will be a focus on values and ethics, because inbuilt into the Advaita philosophy is the fact that there is a cycle of life and rebirth. And if you don't do good in this world, you will be reborn. And if you want to avoid that, your person will be full of values and ethics. And obviously, there will be respect for environment. Because the pure consciousness model says that it looks at the Atman and Brahman, looks at the world, the universe including plants and animals and what have you. So we will learn to respect plants, we learn to respect the animals, all the living beings. And that will also come out from the pure consciousness model. And finally, there will be no egocentricity. A lot of leaders, the word I or the word me is very important to them. They will learn to be humble and become level 5 leaders, like what Jim Collins says. Now, if you think that this is a bit impracticable or it is a bit not achievable, it is not so. We have had so many leaders in the past who have actually, without probably knowing the pure consciousness approach, have adopted this. The spiritual leaders are all that you see from the screen. The political leaders are all that you see from the screen. Social leaders, even the corporate leaders, surprisingly. You know, the Tata Group way back in the 90s or in the early 1900s, their motto or purpose was not to make steel or automobiles or chemicals. They said it is to build communities. Dr. Venkat Swamy, who started the Arvind Rai Hospital, he said, I want to cure the needlessly blind, the poor villagers who are needlessly blind. And that he did through free surgeries. 50% of his clients or customers all underwent free surgeries and the high class laser surgery. So if the leadership model, the pure consciousness leadership model can be applied, it will also have an impact on MBA education. In fact, leadership skills is one of the unmet needs of MBA education. And Srikant Datta, David Cullen, and Patrick Garvin, or Patrick Cullen and David Garvin, in their book Rethinking MBA, had said that leadership skills have really to be imbibed in the MBA graduates. So how can you do that? You can have definitely the MBA itself as an integrative discipline, and you can add philosophy as an additional discipline with the concept of Advaita philosophy and the practice of pranayama as a module and a conceptual model on pure consciousness model of leadership. That will help to make the MBA curriculum much richer than what it is today.
Let me conclude this presentation with the universal prayer on the Indian soil. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mony and Dr. Jayasankar. Our next presentation is by Zeljka Ciganovic and K. Krishna Sharma of Mangalore University in India. And their topic is the potential of corporate yoga in enhancement of emotion regulation in IT workforce in the new normal, a brief narrative review.
Namaste to everyone. I'm Zeljka Ciganovic from Mangalore University in India. And on behalf of my supervisor, Dr. K. Krishna Sharma and me, I'm going to present our paper entitled The Potential of Corporate Yoga in Enhancement of Emotion Regulation in IT Workforce in the New Normal, a brief narrative review. As in the last 3 decades, IT sector has been rapidly increasing worldwide, so is the need to take care of health and well-being of its workforce. IT professionals work long and erratic office hours in a fast-paced working environment. During their work, they might experience many feelings and emotions which they might not be able to regulate in a healthy way. Their emotional responses to work events affect their job satisfaction either positively or negatively. Furthermore, as COVID-19 pandemic working style is endangering employee health and well-being, and taking into consideration all the mentioned circumstances, emotion regulation skills are of the highest importance. This paper is a brief narrative review of the existing body of literature that brings to light health and well-being status of IT workforce and explores the potential of organizing corporate yoga programs as effective interventions for enhancing emotion regulation in IT professionals in the new normal. A brief literature search was performed through the Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar to find the most important peer-reviewed research papers linked to the field of yoga, IT industry, emotion regulation, etc., published in the last 15 years. IT professionals spend most of their days working with multi-screen computer terminals that are related to the development of cumulative trauma disorder. That is, a number of work-related conditions affecting the back, the neck, and upper limbs, along with computer vision syndrome, experiencing symptoms such as eye strain, headaches, blurred vision, dry eyes, neck, and shoulder discomfort. Due to erratic working hours and occupational stress, chronic sleep deprivation and sleep disorders are quite common. In combination with a sedentary work and lifestyle, occupational stress is a key risk factor for cardiovascular and metabolic diseases and associated mortality or sedentary death syndrome. Organizations are responsible for their employees' health and well-being, and many large IT companies have been organizing various workplace health and well-being promotion activities. The nature of work varies greatly across different parts of the IT industry, also having different impacts on employee feelings, emotions, health, and well-being. For example, during programming, a software developer can experience a full spectrum of emotions, from being in a flow, very happy and productive, to experiencing unhappiness, anger, despair, and frustration due to reasons such as bad code or a conflict with a team member or a client. If the former occurs more often than the latter, a developer might lose motivation, withdraw from their work, delay work submission, and experience a drop in their productivity. In order to stay in flow and perform well, a software developer should properly regulate one's emotions. Emotion regulation is a process of implementing cognitive control to regulate or redirect the effect of negative emotions and a crucial skill for successfully dealing with interpersonal conflicts. Software developers are generally more introverted and commonly react differently to customers' aggressive communication than the majority of the workforce. Their emotional reaction to customer aggression defines a positive or negative effect on job satisfaction and performance. In the old normal, Working from home or remote or virtual working became popular in the IT industry as it has many potential benefits. For example, cost effectiveness for employers and working time flexibility for employees. The working from home or working from anywhere during the COVID-19 pandemic has been essentially different from the old normal working from home due to imposed isolation, travel restrictions, blurred work and family boundaries, a lack of decent working conditions at home, absence of educational, childcare, and fitness facilities. In the new normal, higher rates of anxiety, depression, stress, and sleep disorders in the working population have become a frequent issue. Can corporate yoga be a solution to the problem? Yoga is an ancient Indian science of balancing body, mind, and spirit. We are using the term corporate yoga for yoga-based sessions, being a part of employee health and well-being initiatives in any mode of conduct. Corporate yoga programs have become popular due to the simple teaching process, the minimal investment needed to coordinate and execute corporate yoga programs, and quick delivery of a wide range of mental and physical health benefits, improvement of job satisfaction, and work-related productivity. Yoga has numerous benefits for working professionals, especially as it alleviates and removes stress and anxiety-related problems, helps in regulating emotions and enhancing mood, and significantly increases overall wellness and well-being. Yoga may be able to foster emotion regulation skills through such mechanisms as reappraisal, attention regulation, self-monitoring, self-awareness, and autonomic regulation, which are being used and developed through the practice of yoga itself. The purpose of yoga sessions is to help employees get the best recovery from their daily work, improve their mood and health. Depending on the situation, there could be various modes of conduct, on-site, virtual, or hybrid. Virtual modes of delivery could range from live online classes and popular conferencing applications and pre-recorded sessions, which could be offering employees more freedom regarding timings and topics options, to digital wellness challenges, webinars, and podcasts. Companies could hire a yoga professional to work with their employees, either on an hourly basis or a retainership from a nearby yoga studio or a therapy center, or it could offer their employees monthly memberships in yoga studios or online yoga portals of employees' preference. And to briefly conclude, keeping in mind the health and well-being of their employees, and in order to maintain employee morale and productivity in a new normal, IT companies should definitely regularly organize corporate yoga programs for their employees and their families to alleviate stress, depression, and all other health and well-being issues. Besides that, corporate yoga sessions should help the workforce to become more spiritual and raise their consciousness, reach their full potential as human beings, and hence become healthier, happier, and more spiritual individuals who can, in both private and occupational sphere, work for the betterment of the humanity and the world. Thank you for your attention. We would like to hear your feedback and are open for Q&A.
Thank you, Zeljka. Our next presentation comes from PNVV Satyanarayana and Dr. V. Ramanujam of the Bharatiya University in Coimbatore, India.
Greetings of the day to one and all. Here it is PNV Satyanarayana by name, Faculty of Finance by profession and student by attitude, pursuing my PhD at Bharatiya School of Management and Entrepreneurial Development, Bharatiya University, India. With my professor and research supervisor, Dr. V. Ramanujam. So warm welcome to the International Conference on Conscious-Based Leadership and Management. And today's topic is Conscious-Based Leadership and Management, a pathway to build a blissful world. Bewilderment is the root cause of committing mistakes. The one who situates in a good consciousness can never commit any mistakes, because the consciousness is a state of being awake and aware of oneself and one's own surroundings. Therefore, the two ancient practices, consciousness and leadership, putting together can transform the world more blissful, where every individual can live a life of joy and prosperity. And the conscious leadership is both short-term and long-term phenomena that takes into account the very idea of united responsibility and problem solving. Here it is, the theoretical framework for which we have built a model for conscious-based leadership and management. Left-hand side of the figure tells about how to become conscious individual, and the right-hand side tells about how to become the conscious leadership and management. The left-hand side leads to the right-hand side. The conscious individual is required to become more God-conscious as well as self-conscious, without which it is not possible to become a conscious leader or manager. It further depicted in the following table. The first column tells about the conscious individual, the characteristics of conscious individual, and the middle column tells about the qualities of conscious leadership and management. And the last column tells about the characteristics of the disciple of God. The person who is God conscious as well as self-conscious can definitely become the conscious-based leader or manager by possessing the qualities of purpose, responsibility, righteousness, openness, seriousness, courageousness, awareness, and positive influence. It further leads to a blissful world where everyone can live a life of joy and prosperity. The very objectives of the study is to study the concepts of conscious individual and conscious-based leadership and management, and further to analyze the same from the perspectives of the respective categories of respondents. And second objective is to analyze the association between characteristics of conscious individual and qualities of conscious-based leadership and management with the respective categories of respondents. And third objective of the study is to assess the abilities of the respondents with regard to performing the conscious-based leadership and management practices. And fourth objective is to assess the motivation for performing the CBLM practices. And fifth objective is to assess the performance of the respondents with regard to the CBLM practices. And finally, the sixth objective of the study is to suggest ancient solutions to the modern. Through the present study, the following two questions are addressed by us: whether there is an association between characteristics of conscious individual as well as the qualities of conscious-based leadership and management, and whether the academicians or non-academicians are highly able, motivated, and performance of CBLM practices. Accordingly, the following alternative hypothesis have the correlation between conscious individual and conscious-based leadership and management concepts. If you try to see the last column, there is a strong positive correlation between conscious individual as well as conscious-based leadership and management qualities together for about 0.72. And it further states that there is a positive strong correlation between the conscious individual as well as the item-wise conscious-based leadership qualities, as most of the components have a strong positive correlation for about 0.5 above. Hence, we accepted the alternative hypothesis 1. And coming to the performance of CBLM practices, the respondents are further here classified as highly performers, moderately performers, and just performers, basing upon the scores that they achieved. Those who acquire more than 15 are considered as highly performers. Those who are in between 10 and 15 are considered as moderately performers. Those who are less than 10 are considered just performers. There again, 72% of academic respondents are highly performers, while only 62% of non-academic respondents are highly performers. Hence, the academicians are considered to be highly performers of civilian practices, hence we accepted the alternative hypothesis. And coming to the conclusion, here I am going to invite my research supervisor as well as the professor of finance, Dr. V. Ramanujam. Here is ready to.
Thank you, Satyanarayana. This is a time for part of this conference. We have to associate it in this valuable people. Those are the people joining in this. Before concluding in this particular study, just I want to quote that some limitation it's maybe available in the context of only number of the respondents and way for the data collection in our research. And based on that, as a data collection and as well as in our, framework of the study, we are going to be conclude in this particular title. The study concludes that there is a positive impact of CI and CBLM conscious individuals on conscious based on leadership management in both academician and non-academician. But it is high in case of the academician compared to the non-academician. Although both academician and non-academicians are almost equally motivated and able to performing the CBLM practices, it further concludes that the academicians are considered to be as more highly motivated and able to performing the CBLM practices as compared to the non-academician. It can further to be concluded that if each and every individual responsible citizen of the society or world, like in the present empirical study, try to understand and practice the concept of CI and CBLM, taking incident solutions as means of confronting the modern problems, it is possible to build a blissful world where every individual can live a life of joy and prosperity. Thank you. This is a great time with my scholar as well as valuable people, those who are joining in this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Satyanarayana and Ramanujam. Our last presentation for the evening is from Ale Perzashkevich of Belarusian State University, and the topic of his presentation is Ananda in Rigveda, what is behind the evident.
Dear organizers, dear participants, I have been privileged to take part in this conference, and I am glad to propose you my topic, which is Ananda in Rigveda, what is behind the evidence. I am Dr. Oleg Perzashkevich from Minsk, Belarus, it is in Europe, and I am proposing you my ideas regarding Ananda. Well, a special interest has been always attracted to the realities people discovered in ancient times, yes, during the remote past, which we keep in our mind as a relative starting point. We can define the beginning as known to us, both time and in space, as existed for real, but not as perspective or reconstructed. For a great number of Indian realities, the Rigveda is their beginning, such as an essential concept of traditional Indian thinking as Ananda, later the reunion description of Brahman, makes, in our opinion, no exception. Therefore, the present paper is about our consideration on Ananda in Rigveda. As it is well known, there are only 2 occasions of Ananda in the Rigveda, both in the same hymn. You can see here. We should also add here the 3 more fragments containing cognate and other words. You can see here In all those cases, Ananda is traditionally explained as happiness, joy, and pleasure in different languages while translating. This not numerous evidence and absence of basic divergence in understanding of the subject have been regularly considered by the researchers as an obvious argument not to consider Ananda in the Rigveda as an independent object of research, or join those mentions in wider set in all the body of Vedic literature. Therefore, in the Vedas, we can understand the root noun not only as to be pleased, but also to be refreshed, to become stronger, first of all, with the blessing or elegy. For example, I'm going to consider the second variant as a basic value. The very concept Ananda has been traditionally understood as joy, pleasure, and happiness. And the last happiness has seemed to be the core and possibly even the initial one. Etymologically, noun probably originates from Tamil noun too. The flourish, blossom, round, to be proud, to radiate, pride, to shine. But that idea had been refused in due course and returned to the European root, which you can see here, with the meaning of to remove, to abuse, the blame, or the noun which to dare. Here is the relative position in time of the hymns known with this root of noun, while shown inside the pargeters table, who made their list of the participants of Indian previous period of time with their relative position inside the so-called generations. And the last table here you can see as the number position in those generations, which are almost the same. I mean, where they are very close in time, in relative position also. Here is the Shrikan Talagiris table with the same purpose. Different rishis you can see here in the column number 3. Well, and their relative position in time regarding each other, both, all of them are in middle position except for the last one. But the last one, Talagiri considered to be youngest, is not definitely like that, because this period of time is not absolutely definite. The table shown give us the basis to believe that all mentioned fragment of Rigveda composed approximately during the same time. The authorship of the last one, Rigveda 10:71:10, is not proven. Hence, the hymn can be as old or so younger than the other ones. Therefore, usage of the word noun has never been a distinctive attribute of any one particular Rishi family, as we have nothing for it in the family mandalas, but it has been common enough for everybody. Here you can see our result of researchers inside the Vedic text, where you will take all the words connected to this root and see their correlations between inside the text between different words used to depict the situation inside the game. And here are the connections. We have the phenomena connected, action, subject of process, object of process, and so on. So, well, we can from this conclude that Vedic evidence are connected to the ritual of Soma sacrifice, used to be the effect arising during the fulfillment of Soma sacrifice. And this is important. This effect appears during the connection between sacrificial Soma and other ritual actions of different priests, including Brahman, and including here the correlation or the position for frog and Brahman and of their similarity inside the text. While regarding Ananda, we can obviously speak that it was an essential element of material component of sacrifice, the Soma, namely a special condition generated with Soma, which established the required connection between gods and priests during the sacrifice action. This is so-called the academic result. And here is the conclusion I can make for particular reasons or for present time. The Rigveda evidence is that there are some special effects of the directed activity of the action performers, and Ananda is one of them. It means that Ananda is one of the effects of any activity you can do if you have the definite target to reach. Such effect can be received both by a person and a group. If the action is successful, this effect of Ananda will be the reward and confirmative response to the aspiration of performers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ale. So we reached the end of our presentations. Can I request everybody to turn on their videos, the cameras, Dr. V. Ramanujan? Thank you. And I would now request Dr. Rajshekhar Krishnan to carry forward the moderation for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, and it has been a joy to actually listen to all of you and to see all of you. So the typical Indian tradition is that you first hear, then you internalize, and then you experience. But in my case, since I have been reading all your papers, I have first read you, now I hear you, and now we'll have the interaction towards understanding for our benefit and for the benefit of the audience. So with that broad opening statement, I would like to go paper by paper and would seek to ask you questions. Keeping in mind that the overall session purpose is some of the workplace issues that are there, which kind of bother us who work in organizations. And therefore, the papers are looking towards a solution towards these workplace issues. So with that preliminary remark, I am going to be addressing the first question to Dr. Indu Peiris, with whom I've had an interaction. And the question to him is, currently many workplaces lower or depress the subjective well-being, and they unbalance the work-life balance that people have. Therefore, what main principles from the integrative approach that you have presented in your paper can be put to practice to enable, flourishing human beings who are more united, who are more integrated? That's my question.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan. I look at it from two perspectives. One is basically our model is centered on the individual, not so much on the external world. So the sense of urgency must come from within the individual. The starting point is your own desire or your intention to lead a balanced life. So you have to have that intention. With this goal in mind, one must start an inner journey investigating the nature of their own consciousness. One should aim to achieve equanimity. That is the individual part. Now, when you look at the workplace, there are three things to consider. First, allowing workers to work flexibly and not encouraging to work long hours. This reduces role conflict. Second, compensate employees well above the industry standards and provide better than average working conditions. This leads to contentment. Third, have a clear career goals and succession planning. So the employees know their career path and what needs to be done in order to succeed in their workplaces. So if we can do those two, I'm sure we'll be able to find good subjective well-being in our lives. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we really look forward to organizations which support subjective well-being and obviously offer a work-life balance in a very, very positive way. Thank you so much for your considered response. Now I will turn to the second paper from Amelia Indrajaya. And wonderful, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. So my question to you is, looking beyond the results of your research, how would you enable spiritual leadership in current leaders to help them lead humanity towards oneness and flourishing? Because we need to address our current leadership in a better way. So what are your thoughts here?
All right. Thank you so much. Because I'm only given 1 minute, so let's put it in a very simple way. So going back to the root of our creation, in Indonesia, we are mostly Muslim. We believe that we are created as Khalifah fil ard, meaning the vicegerent of God or deputy of God to take care of the everything, not only our family, also community, environment, and the universe. And so when you have to do that, you have to be very selfless, like non-self, like what we have heard before. So maybe in a very simple mathematical equation, you can see that when you're still thinking about yourself, let's say you have 5 positions, so you will be only 1/5 for each. But then if you're saying that, hey, I'm here to serve, servanthood, so I'm 0. So 1 divided by 0 is infinity. So this is the concept of Rahmatan lil Alamin, which means we are becoming this leader flourishing for all. Now this flourishing impact for all, this is what we are doing in the spiritual leadership. So it's not about position as a CEO or whatever. It's more into everyone playing their role as the way we are created by God.
Thank you so much.
So that's a simple way.
I think we might have lost Dr.
Third people that was present. Okay. Yes.
Your voice tailed off, but that's okay.
Okay, it's here.
Okay. Okay. I hope you're able to hear me clearly now. Okay, wonderful.
Dr. Jayasankaran, unmute. Dr. Jayasankaran.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Jayasankaran, you have to unmute your. Your. Yeah. And of course, allow me to ask the question. I have not yet asked the question. So, the question that I have for Dr. Jayasankaran and for Professor Suresh Mony is, as mentioned in your paper, current leadership styles are proving to be inadequate to be dealing with current and future challenges. So the question based on the theme of your paper is, how can Advaita-based leadership coaching be given to current leaders, helping them to lead and better inspire humanity, and of course their businesses towards oneness and flourishing?
Thank you, Dr. Shekhar, for that interesting question. As we are all aware, there is no dearth of leadership theories or leadership models. But if you look at the effective way of managing and leading others, all effective, benevolent, and inspiring leaders on this earth have first learned to lead their own selves from within. Only then they have stepped out on the world stage to lead others. The secret of such a self-empowerment is by tireless, intense psychological effort of awakening the inner self. This can be achieved by deep, mindful breathing pranayama. While all leadership models focus on an external follower or deficiency-related process, Advaita philosophy of Atman or pure consciousness is universal, leading to empowerment from within.
Thank you, Dr. Rajshekharan. Let me continue. We propose a three-phase leadership coaching program. The phase 1 will be gaining knowledge on the pure consciousness model. It will have 4 outcomes. Outcome number 1 will be the process of self-realization. Outcome number 2 will be to gain the courage and humility to change. Outcome number 3 will be a toolkit for give you the values of ethics or self-discipline and also respect for the environment. Outcome number 4 will be how to craft a purpose for an organization. Phase 2 will be really the practical aspects in terms of the pranayama, the purification of the mind, the brain stilling, and enhancing the EQ through the Ida and Pingala. And phase 3 will be a 9-month-long immersion process. It will be practice with feedback from the coach and from the stakeholders and a constant monitoring so that at the end of 9 months, your leadership quotient can improve.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a beautiful blend of theory and practice. So sound practice depends upon sound theory. So thank you so much for your deeply valuable insights to this session. I will now proceed to paper number 5, the paper by Mr. Satyanarayana and of course his supervisor. So my question to you is like this: looking beyond the research in your paper, what are the main principles of developing and educating higher consciousness individuals who are obviously the basis of consciousness-based leaders, so that they can lead their organizations better and obviously more capably? So how do you develop higher consciousness individuals?
Thank you, sir, Dr. Rajashekaran. First of all, of course, the question is beyond the research we have conducted, but of course, it helps me a lot in delving further in furthering my research in the future. And coming to the higher consciousness, the God consciousness is the higher consciousness, not only on this Earth planet, but also in the entire planetary systems of this universe. And the underlying principles of the God consciousness are humility, secondly, unity and equality, thirdly, patience, fourthly, detachment or renunciation, and fifthly, but not last, it is servitude, the attitude of service. And I will try to explain at least a few of them in brief, as my time limit is only 1 minute. Yes. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually tells about how one needs to be very human, humble. So in terms of one must be humble than a blade of grass, which means one should not supplicate another person unless and until actually he realizes that he is so little or otherwise tiny.
May I request you to just give the points, please? The 4 points that you have been able to extract, so that we get the key ideas.
Yes, yes. Again, I have to have. May I repeat again the 4 points? Why? Because anything in this material world is not possible to be accomplished by any one of us individually with our own unaided efforts. That is the reason why actually we should actually think that we are helpless or otherwise so little in front of others. Why here actually the blade of grass is considered to be the most humbler element in this world. When we try to crush it or otherwise when we try to walk on it, actually it doesn't or it won't react to any one of us actually. The same blade of grass actually when taken into a rope of cast of blades, it can even tie the huge elephant. That is actually the power of humility. And coming to the patience, it is actually one should actually very persistent and consistent of doing whatever actually he is assigned until the time and circumstances favor the efforts. Generally, we become impatient when we covet anything. It is the covetousness situation is exactly opposite to the humility. Therefore, one should give up the hankering as well as the lamenting of what we don't have or otherwise what we lost. It is all possible only by renouncing or detaching actually. And this is what actually my idea of developing the higher consciousness by following these principles.
I think we've lost Rajshekar just a bit. Let's wait for Anil to join back.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's see. I have Rajshekar's questions. If you've received questions from Rajshekar, have you? Everybody?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's go with the next paper. Let me see who was the next paper. You had so Zeljka's question, right?
Yes.
Oh no, you were answering Satyanarayan. Dr. Satyanarayan was answering the question, isn't it? Okay, Ali, the last question. So Ali, if you could state what the question.
Anil, it's Zeljka next.
Zeljka next. Okay, Zeljka, if you could please state the question that Dr. Rajshankar asked you. That'll be, and then just read aloud, and then you could answer that. That's good. Thank you.
Sir. Based on your research and experience, how else can digital technologies be used for corporate yoga? And how can leaders use corporate yoga to develop consciousness-based leadership? So question is really good. It's really lengthy. I'll try to sum it up. Regarding digital technologies, whatever we have mentioned in our paper is actually something that is feasible to organizations. Of course, there are large organizations like in India, Mahindra, that is, they have their own yoga and meditation apps for their employees, and they're really putting lots of efforts. When it comes to what other things from digital technologies we could use and that we have not mentioned in the paper, of course, there are many new developments. We can just take the existing concepts from the fitness industry when it comes to augmented reality. And for example, many applications now have AR features in the application itself. That means that, for example, through the application, a person can have a personalized yoga session because there's like smart glasses. An application will know exactly by the posture what is the potential problem in the body and mind, because how is our mind, it will reflect on our posture. And application itself can suggest specific asana and pranayam for the user. Other thing is also what these AR features are allowing users is to actually have a holographic personalized yoga teacher, whether at home or office or anywhere. So these are existing concepts in fitness industry, but how feasible it would be for organizations to conduct the corporate yoga, we are still not sure. And we are not actually aware that any company has been doing it until now, due to the costs of the equipment, that you need the holographic projector, you need the special smart glasses, etc. When it comes to the second question, how can leaders use corporate yoga to develop consciousness-based leadership? Well, entire conference is actually about that, and I would just like to take few most important thoughts out of it. Of course, consciousness-based leadership can be developed by facilitating spirituality at work. But when it comes to this today is modern, like the corporate yoga, this is modern postural yoga. So this is mainly asana, pranayam with meditation, or depends how much secularity companies want to push, develop. So some things are just kind of cut off. So not even pranayam, not allowed, only asana, or it depends on from the company to company. But how can corporate yoga? Well, that is really a good question. So I believe that in order to actually help develop consciousness-based leadership, specific lessons from different pathways of yoga should be incorporated. Like if we talk about jnana yoga or bhakti yoga. So for example, in jnana yoga, it's very, very interesting concept that we are separating ourselves from our mental issues, mental thoughts. We are just trying to be observer. Okay, so this is very connected to the topic that I was talking about, emotional regulation. But when we are in the office, we cannot talk, okay, this is jnana yoga. We have to, in a different concept, present it in a more secular way. For example, bhakti yoga would mean, creating love and compassion.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's great. Yeah, yoga, we can talk all day long. Appreciate it. This is great. You have such a passion for yoga, and certainly, corporate yoga has certain probably things that one can get done in yoga. Corporate environment, obviously, not everything. Yeah. Okay, I think Raj is back, but let's go with Ale. Ale, you can read out the question, and then let's see. Yeah.
With my network and.
Yeah, let's just have Ale read the question, and while you listen in, and maybe you can synthesize the insights of that one. Ale, are you here?
Yeah.
Are you on mute?
Okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have specially put my question to the list. You can see in the chat.
Right.
As I see, you cannot manage it without text. So my question is, you can read, how can Ananda's joy, bliss, and delight of existence be spread to the pandemic and post-pandemic world to enable humanity?
He's on mute.
Sorry, Ali, you got muted.
That's okay. That's okay. It's a technical thing. Well, what can I say about the present, past pandemic and pandemic situation? Well, Ananda itself showed the practice that if you do something particularly and you have experience in doing this, and you have the target or the goal to reach, well, if you do everything correctly, whatever personally or in the group, you can feel or you can get this Ananda as a response. And what can I say for present time? If you do everything well, whatever you're doing, you have this Ananda effect as the response, both group and individual thing. So, and this is probably the most reasonable recommendation for now.
Thank you.
We need the response to for any action, and this Ananda practice for many years. I mean, this practice given us together. That's it.
Appreciate your answer, and let's go with Dr. Satyanarayana. And maybe can you just read aloud the question that was asked of you, if you don't mind?
I answered already the question. Just
okay.
to
all right. You answered. So who have you covered all the papers so far? Yeah. Okay. So thank you all very much. And Raj, would you want to take a couple of minutes to just synthesize what might be your main points?
Yeah, I'll just take a quick. So what I see is that we need to resolve workplace issues, and a very traditional ancient Indian formulation for that is these are called knots, granth, and there is the granth or the knot of what is called the physicality. There is a knot or the issue of emotions, and there's a knot or the issue of intellectuality. So these are three issues which can be resolved through the offices of the various ideas given here. So with that takeaway, I think I'm so pleased to have, of course, with a little bit of a hiccup, chaired and moderated the session here. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. Over to you, Anil.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody joining. And we put a little survey link. This time we remembered, in the previous session they forgot. So everybody who's listening in, and maybe even speakers or everybody, if you could please just click on this link and fill it up, we would appreciate. Just very simple. It's a 1 minute kind of thing, 1 question, 2 questions kind of thing. So we appreciate your feedback. So we appreciate your joining, and we would enjoy having you again in the future sessions. The next session would be at 9 a.m. on Saturday, 9 a.m. CDT. Anybody, Vikram, do you have any points to make additional?
No, nothing, unless you want to have any questions from the audience.
Yeah, let's see what any questions from the audience want to take, anything, or I think that it's getting a little late for us here, so we would just continue. It's also time, right? Or we were finishing just in time, I think 10:30. So we have planned for a 90-minute session. So what does it mean for consciousness? We want to connect everything back to consciousness, right? So whether it's Ananda or with yoga and other things that Dr. Mony talked about, and others sort of, it's again referring back to self. It's enlivenment of the self, right? Through any technique, and bliss is the self, I would say, Satchitanand. So it starts with the idea that we are unbounded and infinite, and then that's we are bliss, settling within ourselves. I want to share one thing, and maybe I'll get some feedback right now or not, but based on listening to other sessions, my insight, remember that we have this 4 big questions. What are the universal principles of flourishing? How these technologies are helping, and what the convergence of ancient science and this. So I got this idea of universal principle of flourishing, which is that you be cosmocentric, unbounded, sort of in your outbound thing, expand your awareness, be with nature, appreciate nature, learn to enjoy nature. At the same time, you become one with yourself, unbound, realize, transcend yoga, dhyana yoga, whatever you would do, but then connect with the inner self and then realize the unboundedness there. So it is this idea that it's almost like an hourglass, right? You have unboundedness at the top and the outside, then you sort of narrow down, which is sort of your inner self, which is your point value. But then within that point value is actually the unboundedness of consciousness, which is bigger than the thing outside. And that's where we say inside is outside, outside is inside. To me, the idea of flourishing is this idea that you can be very unbounded on the outside and totally unbounded on the inside. Does it make sense?
Yes,
expand your awareness on the outside and totally experience unbounded on the inside. Yeah, go ahead. Raj, you were saying something? Yeah.
Yes, I was saying that is the basis of consciousness, because you see, we are sometimes our best friends and we are sometimes our worst enemies. So when we expand our inner selves, we are our best friends, and that's what we need to do. And of course, all the unblocking lies in ensuring that we don't become our worst enemies. And that's where the challenges are.
That's good. Let me just round robin. Yeah, Dr. Jayasankaran. Go ahead, please.
Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. Uddharer atmaratmanam atmanam avasavayet. Atmano atmaiva bandhuho atmano rupuratmanaha. If you elevate yourselves, you become your best friend. If you debase yourselves, you become your worst enemy. Friends and enemies are not outside. They are well within us. Beautifully explained by Krishna in Gita.
Absolutely, sir. I was referring to
Anybody else wants to respond to my point that what I was suggesting? Satyanarayana, do you really appreciate this? My description of flourishing, the expansion of the outside and unbounded consciousness on the inside. What do you think?
Yeah, I think your example of hourglass was excellent. The way that the unbounded and expanding and then coming within. I think that the hourglass is a beautiful example.
Okay. Dr. Satyanarayana, what do you think?
Yes, exactly. It is the glasses which we wear enables us to see outside of ourselves. That means how we are inside is exactly outside.
That is true, isn't it? Don't we say that? How, as you say, is the outside. Amelia, what do you think about that description, what I did? Unmute yourself, please.
Yes. So I think we find that we have this universal way of thinking despite our different backgrounds. So this is very beautiful.
Thank you. Zeljka.
What is there in the microcosm is in the macrocosm, right, and vice versa.
Yatha pinde tatha vishwam.
Correct. Andatil pindam pindatil.
Yeah. All right. And because Zeljka and Ale, and then we'll close out. Zeljka, what do you feel about what I just said?
I feel it's actually very right, very correct description. I mean, the definition. And all the other participants have added beautiful quotes also from Bhagavad Gita. And I don't know what to add, but I like it. I really like it. And perhaps it could be even more elaborated, and implemented in the working culture.
Right. Because what I think is when we publish, let's say, the proceedings, we want to have some distilling in the front, right? These are the 4 questions the whole conference was saying. So I'm in the process of seeing every day if I get at least one principle answered, then we're making some progress. We don't expect magic that on the 3rd day, suddenly all 3 principles will get answered. Dr. Ramanujan, what do you feel about that?
Well, I see.
Dr. Ramanujan, okay, go ahead.
Another itself is an interesting thing. So you feel it personally. But, well, I would say that the effect is collective. And I mean that, of course, it is somewhere inside, but the collective feeling of mutual benefit is also of the same level. I mean, it is not only just the outside directed, just every inside practice is the piece of the collective, or collective ananda, let's say.
Okay,
that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you. Dr. Ramanujan.
Yeah, yes, this is what I mean, high consciousness we have to build in our that inner behavior. It shows that in our, I mean, other people, especially in the higher education institution, we are the right people to deliver to the end generation. That people, it's maybe attempt to this conversion or transformation into the future. Really, one day we got the very good climate or atmosphere in our, I mean, child or future generation. Obviously, we have to wait some more time. We are our future generation going to be enjoyed in this, I mean, super extreme climate on the as a conscious oriented.
Thank you. And Dr. Indu, you will have the last word.
Well, it's very interesting, I think, Anil. And basically, I think what you are saying is right. I mean, there's no outside and inside. Whatever you see is the same thing. The thing is, we don't understand it. We don't see it that way unless you consciously make an effort to develop your own consciousness, which very few are actually trying to do.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So we appreciate, and if you could, everybody could just put in some words of feedback, we would appreciate that. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for joining the conference. Thank you for joining the session, and we appreciate your hard work inside. And I'm going to stop the recording.